It was supposed to be a celebration, a family vacation, a break from the routine of daily life back in Virginia. The Bradley family, Ron, Iva, and their two children, Brad and Amy, had boarded the majestic cruise ship, Rhapsody of the Seas, for a trip through the Caribbean. It was March of 1998. The air was warm, the water was a brilliant blue, and the future seemed just as bright. Amy Lynn Bradley was 23 years old, a recent college graduate with a whole life ahead of her. She was smart, athletic, a trained lifeguard. She was the kind of person you'd never imagine could simply disappear. But in the pre-dawn hours of March 24, 1998, as the ship sailed between Aruba and Curaçao, that is precisely what happened. One moment she was there, and the next, she was gone. The story of Amy Lynn Bradley is one that has haunted her family, investigators, and the public for over 2 decades. It's a mystery that began on the seemingly safe, self-contained world of a luxury cruise ship and spiraled out into a perplexing web of theories and tantalizing, yet unconfirmed clues. How does a person vanish from a vessel in the middle of the ocean without a trace? The question itself is chilling, defying the logic we rely on to make sense of the world. For the Bradley family, that question became the central, agonizing focus of their lives, a puzzle with a missing piece that was their daughter, their sister. The search for answers would take them down paths they never could have imagined, from the corridors of the ship to the darkest corners of the internet. What makes this case so profoundly unsettling is the environment in which it occurred. A cruise ship is often described as a floating city, a place with thousands of passengers and crew, constant activity, and, one would assume, a high level of security. Yet within this controlled environment, Amy vanished. There was no note, no sign of a struggle, no definitive evidence pointing to what might have happened. It was as if she had been erased. The initial response from the cruise line was slow, the search of the ship anything but thorough, according to her family. This initial confusion and lack of immediate, decisive action would set the stage for years of frustration and unanswered questions, leaving a void where certainty should be. The disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley became a cautionary tale, a story whispered among travelers about the hidden dangers that can lurk even in the most idyllic of settings. It challenges our sense of security, reminding us that even when surrounded by people, one can be utterly alone and vulnerable. For more than a quarter of a century, the mystery has endured, fueled by strange sightings, cryptic leads, and the relentless, unwavering love of a family that refuses to give up hope. It's a story not just about a missing person, but about the enduring strength of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable loss, and the undying hope that one day, after all this time, the truth will finally surface from the deep. To understand the mystery, you have to go back to that night, the night of March 23, 1998. The Rhapsody of the Seas was alive with music and laughter. The Bradley family had enjoyed dinner together, and afterward, Amy and her brother Brad headed to the ship's nightclub. It was a typical night on a cruise. People were dancing, enjoying the festive atmosphere. Amy was seen dancing with a member of the ship's band, a man known as Yellow. There was nothing, according to witnesses, that seemed out of place or alarming. Amy was having a good time, surrounded by fellow vacationers. The hours ticked by, the party eventually wound down, and Amy and Brad made their way back to the family's cabin in the early hours of the morning. The timeline becomes critically important here, in these quiet moments before dawn. Brad has stated that he and his sister returned to the cabin sometime between 1 and 3 in the morning. Their parents, Ron and Iva, were asleep. Amy sat out on the cabin's private balcony for a while with her father, who had woken up. Ron Bradley remembers seeing his daughter on the balcony around 5:15 in the morning. He asked her if she was all right, and she said yes. He then went back inside to rest, seeing Amy for what would be the last confirmed time. It was a simple, unremarkable moment, the kind that happens 1,000 times in a family's life. But this one would be replayed in his mind forever. He dozed off, leaving Amy alone with the dark ocean and the sleeping ship. When Ron Bradley woke again, just before 6 in the morning, Amy was gone. The only things she left behind were her cigarettes and a lighter. Her shoes were gone, suggesting she had put them on before leaving the room. But her room key, her ID, and the majority of her personal belongings remained. The ship was scheduled to dock in Curaçao shortly, and the family's initial thought was that perhaps she had gone up on deck to take pictures of the ship arriving in port. It was a logical assumption, a hopeful one. But as the minutes turned into an hour and Amy did not return, a knot of dread began to tighten. She was not in the dining room for breakfast. She was not on the upper decks. The family immediately reported her missing to the ship's crew, but they say their concerns were initially dismissed. They were told that announcements for missing passengers couldn't be made until the entire ship had disembarked in Curaçao. This delay was agonizing. Hours slipped by, precious time that could have been used to search the vessel, to question witnesses while their memories were still fresh. By the time a formal search was organized, the ship had already docked, and thousands of passengers were streaming ashore. The window of opportunity to find Amy if she was still on that ship was closing with every person who walked down the gangplank and disappeared into the streets of Curaçao. The perfect, contained crime scene was now contaminated. When a person disappears from a ship at sea, the most immediate and logical theory is often the most tragic, an accident. The idea that Amy Lynn Bradley could have fallen overboard is a possibility that investigators had to consider from the very beginning. The ocean is vast and unforgiving. A fall from a ship's balcony or deck, especially in the dark of night, could easily go unnoticed. The ship was moving, the currents were strong, and the chances of survival in such a scenario would be slim to none. This theory suggests a simple, heartbreaking end to a young life. A misstep, a moment of imbalance, and a silent plunge into the dark water below, with no one around to witness or help. However, several factors cast doubt on this seemingly straightforward explanation. Amy was a strong swimmer and a trained lifeguard. Her family insists that she was not intoxicated to the point of being disoriented or careless. Her father, Ron, saw her just a short time before she vanished and noted nothing that caused him alarm. Furthermore, there were no sounds of a struggle, a scream, or a splash that anyone reported hearing. While not impossible, it seems unlikely that someone as athletic and capable as Amy would accidentally fall from a private balcony, which typically has high, sturdy railings designed specifically to prevent such accidents. The lack of any evidence, like a piece of clothing snagged on the railing, also works against this theory. Another branch of the accident theory explores the grim possibility of suicide. Could Amy have been secretly despondent, choosing to end her life in a place far from home? Her family has always been adamant that this was not the case. They describe her as a happy, forward-looking young woman who was excited about her future. She had a new job lined up and had just gotten a new apartment. There were no known signs of depression or any personal crisis that would lead her to take such a drastic step. The absence of a suicide note, while not definitive proof, further weakens this line of speculation. Voluntarily jumping from the ship seems entirely out of character for the Amy her family and friends knew. Ultimately, the accident or suicide theory remains just that, a theory, and one that her family finds difficult to accept. For them, Amy's skills as a lifeguard and her positive state of mind make it an improbable scenario. They believe her disappearance was not the result of a random, tragic accident, but of a deliberate human act. While the ocean may hold its secrets, the Bradleys are convinced that the answer to what happened to Amy lies not in the water, but with the people who were on that ship with her that night, and the possibility that someone saw her as a target for something far more sinister than a simple accident. Perhaps the most persistent and chilling theory is that Amy Lynn Bradley did not fall, nor did she jump. Instead, it's believed she was abducted and forced off the ship, likely sold into human trafficking. This theory, while horrifying, is supported by a number of strange and unsettling details from the family's time on the cruise. Amy's parents reported that several crew members had paid an unusual and uncomfortable amount of attention to Amy during the trip. Her father, Ron, specifically recalled one waiter who made him uneasy, asking for Amy by name and making comments that felt inappropriate. This created a sense of being watched, of Amy being singled out. This feeling was amplified by events on the night she disappeared. Her father has spoken of seeing Amy and the band member, Yellow, part ways after dancing and noted that their interaction seemed friendly. However, earlier in the trip, a ship's photographer had reportedly been reluctant to take photos of Amy, which the family found odd. Then there are the statements from other passengers. One man, a fellow traveler named David Carmichael, claimed he saw a man with a tattoo of a Tasmanian devil on his arm with Amy in a ship's elevator shortly before she vanished. He said Amy looked distressed. This detail of a specific tattoo would become a recurring, though unverified, element in the story of her disappearance. The theory gains more traction when you consider how such a crime could have been committed. Proponents suggest that someone or a group of people, possibly crew members with knowledge of the ship's layout and security blind spots, could have targeted Amy. They could have lured her from her room or subdued her, then held her in a private crew area until the ship docked in Curaçao. At that point, she could have been whisked off the ship with the disembarking crew or smuggled off in some other way, lost in the chaotic shuffle of arrival in a new port. The cruise line's initial slow response and the delay in searching the ship would have given perpetrators ample time to execute such a plan. This abduction theory is the one that the Bradley family themselves finds most credible. It aligns with the strange behavior they witnessed and provides a potential explanation for the subsequent unconfirmed sightings of Amy in the years that followed. The idea that their daughter could have been targeted, taken, and forced into a life of exploitation is an almost unbearable thought, yet it is the one that they believe holds the key to the truth. It transforms the mystery from a tragic accident into a sinister crime, one that demands not just answers, but justice for Amy. The FBI has investigated this angle extensively, acknowledging that human trafficking is a real and present danger in the region. In any missing person case, there is always one possibility that must be considered, however unlikely it may seem to those who knew the person best. This is the theory of voluntary disappearance. Could Amy Lynn Bradley have orchestrated her own vanishing act? Did she, for reasons unknown to her family, decide to walk away from her life and start a new one? This theory suggests that Amy left her cabin on her own accord, walked off the ship in Curaçao, and intentionally blended into the local population or traveled elsewhere, severing all ties with her past. It's a narrative that offers a less tragic alternative to an accident or abduction, but it is one that opens up a whole new set of perplexing questions. The arguments in favor of this theory are thin and rely more on speculation than on evidence. Someone wanting to disappear might see a cruise ship docking in a foreign country as a perfect opportunity. It provides a clean break, a point of departure from one life, and entry into another. She could have packed a small bag with essentials, leaving most of her belongings behind to make it look like she had simply vanished. Perhaps she had a contact in Curaçao waiting to help her begin her new life. This scenario paints a picture of a calculated and deliberate plan, executed by a woman who wanted to escape something, or someone, in her life back home. However, the evidence overwhelmingly contradicts this idea. Amy's family is adamant that she had no reason to run away. She was close with her parents and her brother. She had just graduated from college, secured a job, and was making plans for her future. Her bank accounts and credit cards were never touched after her disappearance, which is highly unusual for someone attempting to start a new life. Furthermore, why would she choose such a dramatic and cruel method, leaving her family to suffer with uncertainty for decades? It seems out of character for the loving daughter and sister they describe. The emotional toll this would inflict on her family makes the voluntary disappearance theory seem both improbable and callous. Ultimately, while it's a box that investigators must tick, the idea that Amy chose to leave is the least likely of the three main theories. There is no motive, no supporting evidence, and it runs contrary to everything known about her personality and her relationships. The apathetic cruelty of such an act just doesn't align with the portrait of Amy painted by those who loved her. The Bradley family has firmly dismissed this possibility, believing that Amy would never willingly put them through such prolonged agony. They are certain that whatever happened to her on that ship was not by her own choice, pushing the focus back toward the more ominous possibilities of accident, or, more likely in their view, foul play. In the years following Amy's disappearance, the official investigation yielded, honestly, very few concrete leads, but the case was kept alive by a string of tantalizing and deeply disturbing reported sightings. These accounts, coming from various locations across the Caribbean, painted a grim picture that really seemed to support the abduction theory. One of the earliest and most notable sightings occurred in 1998, just months after she vanished. Two Canadian tourists reported seeing a woman who strongly resembled Amy on a beach in Curaçao. They said the woman was with two men who were behaving aggressively toward her, and she seemed to be trying to get the tourists' attention. The woman had a tattoo of a Tasmanian devil, the same detail mentioned by the passenger on the ship. Another significant potential sighting came a year later, in 1999. A member of the U.S. Navy reported a shocking encounter in a brothel in the Caribbean. He He claimed he met a woman who introduced herself as Amy Bradley. She allegedly told him that she was being held against her will and was not allowed to leave. She begged him for help before she was taken away by her handlers. The sailor did not report the incident immediately, stating later that he feared repercussions, but his account was detailed and compelling. When he eventually came forward, he provided investigators with the location of the establishment, but by the time they looked into it, the brothel had burned down, leaving another promising lead reduced to ashes. Perhaps the most haunting piece of potential evidence came not from a sighting, but from a photograph. In 2005, an image surfaced on an adult website that showed a woman in lingerie who bore a striking resemblance to Amy Lynn Bradley. The woman in the photo appeared distressed and was lying on a bed. Forensic analysts from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children examined the photo. While they could not definitively confirm it was Amy, they also could not rule it out, noting that the facial features were highly consistent with hers. For the Bradley family, seeing this image was both horrifying and a potential source of hope, proof that she might still be alive, even in the most terrible of circumstances. These sightings and clues, while compelling, have never led to a breakthrough. Each one has been investigated by the family and the FBI, but none have resulted in finding Amy. The leads often come years after the fact, making them difficult to verify. Witnesses' memories fade, locations change, and the trail grows colder with each passing day. Yet these whispers and glimpses are what have kept the search going. They offer a fragile thread of hope that Amy is out there somewhere, waiting to be found. For her family, each new tip, no matter how small, is a reason to keep fighting, to keep her name and face in the public eye, hoping that one day a sighting will finally lead them to her. In the face of unimaginable grief and frustrating dead ends, the Bradley family's response has been one of extraordinary strength and relentless determination. From the moment they realized Amy was missing, Ron, Iva, and Brad transformed from a vacationing family into a team of tireless investigators and advocates. They refused to accept the initial dismissals from the cruise line and pushed for immediate action. When that action felt insufficient, they took matters into their own hands. They have spent the past 2.5 decades doing everything in their power to find Amy, turning their personal tragedy into a public crusade for answers. Their love for Amy fuels a search that has never for a single day stopped. Their efforts have been comprehensive and unceasing. They established a website and a hotline, plastering Amy's face on posters and flyers across the Caribbean and the United States. They have traveled back to Curaçao and Aruba multiple times, chasing down leads on their own, often at great personal risk and expense. They have hired private investigators, offered substantial rewards for information, and worked closely with organizations like the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Iva and Ron have become familiar faces in the media, appearing on numerous television shows like Dateline, Dr. Phil, and America's Most Wanted, always with the same clear, unwavering message: help us find our daughter. The emotional toll of this unending search is impossible to fully comprehend. Every day for the Bradleys is lived with the gnawing uncertainty of Amy's fate. Every phone call could be the one that brings news, good or bad. Every reported sighting brings a surge of hope followed, too often, by the crushing weight of disappointment. Yet, they have channeled their pain into action, refusing to let Amy be forgotten. They have become a voice not only for their daughter, but for the families of all missing persons, highlighting the importance of persistence and the need for greater support and resources in such cases. Their journey is a testament to the enduring power of parental love. Their hope is not a passive one, it is an active, driving force. The family continues to manage a Facebook page, Amy Bradley Missing, where they share updates, engage with a community of supporters, and post new age-progressed photos of what Amy might look like today. They believe, with every fiber of their being, that she is still alive. This belief is what gets them through each day. They are not just searching for a memory, they are searching for a person they believe is still out there, waiting for them. Their unwavering commitment is a powerful reminder that for a family, hope is not just a feeling, it is a promise that is never broken. For many years, the story of Amy Lynn Bradley was kept alive primarily by her family's efforts and occasional media coverage. However, in recent years, the case has found a powerful new engine for attention: the internet and the rise of the true crime genre. A new generation, unfamiliar with the original headlines from 1998, is now learning about Amy's story through podcasts, YouTube channels, and viral social media threads. This digital resurgence has breathed new life into the investigation, bringing thousands of new eyes and ears to the details of the case. The internet has become a vast, digital town square where Amy's story is told and retold, ensuring she is not forgotten. The true crime phenomenon has played a significant role in this renewed interest. Documentaries and series on streaming platforms like Netflix have created a massive audience for complex, unsolved mysteries. While a major docuseries has yet to focus solely on Amy's case, it is frequently featured in compilations of baffling disappearances, introducing her story to millions. These productions often present the timeline, theories, and key pieces of evidence in a compelling narrative format, making the case accessible and engaging for viewers around the world. This exposure generates conversation, speculation, and most importantly, awareness. Every new person who learns about Amy is another potential source of information. Online communities, particularly on platforms like Reddit and Facebook, have become hubs for amateur sleuths who dissect every detail of the case. In forums dedicated to Amy, users analyze witness statements, debate the credibility of sightings, and propose new theories. They scrutinize the infamous photograph, comparing facial features and searching for clues. While this online activity can sometimes lead to misinformation and wild speculation, it also serves a valuable purpose. It keeps the case active in the public consciousness and creates a centralized, passionate community dedicated to finding answers. This collective energy ensures that even the smallest detail is not overlooked. This digital spotlight has a direct impact on the search. It amplifies the family's message, spreading their official Facebook page and information to a global audience in a way that was impossible in 1998. It puts pressure on law enforcement and other official bodies to remain engaged with the case. A cold case can be warmed up by the heat of public interest. For the Bradley family, this new wave of attention is invaluable. It validates their decades of effort and reinforces their hope that the key to solving this mystery might just be a click away. Perhaps in the memory of someone who sees a post or watches a video and finally realizes they have a piece of the puzzle. More than a quarter of a century has passed since Amy Lynn Bradley vanished from the deck of a cruise ship, yet her story continues to captivate and disturb us. Why does this particular case endure in our collective memory? It is more than just the chilling setting or the lack of answers. The mystery of Amy Lynn Bradley taps into some of our deepest fears: the fear of the unknown, the vulnerability of being far from home, and the terrifying idea that a person can simply be erased from existence without a trace, even when surrounded by thousands of people. It is a stark reminder that the world can be a dangerous place, and safety is sometimes just an illusion. The case remains so compelling because it is a perfect, unsolved puzzle. There are just enough clues to fuel endless speculation, but not enough to form a complete picture. There are the unsettling accounts of crew members' behavior, the reported sightings on Caribbean islands, the mysterious man with the tattoo, and the haunting photograph. Each piece of information is a breadcrumb that leads down a different path, but none of those paths have yet led to a definitive conclusion. This ambiguity is what makes the case a persistent fixture in the true crime landscape. It invites us to play detective, to weigh the evidence, and to try to solve a mystery that has stumped professionals for decades. The unwavering dedication of the Bradley family is also a central reason the case remains in the public eye. Their refusal to give up, their dignity in the face of unimaginable pain, and their active, vocal search for their daughter are profoundly moving. They have given a human face to a cold case file, reminding us that behind the headlines and theories is a family whose world was shattered. Their story is one of love, resilience, and hope against all odds. We continue to look for Amy, in part because we are invested in their journey. We want to see their faithfulness rewarded with the peace that only answers can bring. Ultimately, we still look for Amy Lynn Bradley because of the enduring possibility that the truth is still out there, waiting to be discovered. The FBI case remains open, and the reward for information leading to her whereabouts still stands at $25,000, with the family offering an additional $50,000. Somewhere, someone may hold the key. Perhaps it's a former crew member who saw something, a tourist who remembers a fleeting detail, or even Amy herself, hoping for rescue. As long as there is a chance, however slim, that she could be found, the search will continue. The mystery of what happened on the Rhapsody of the Seas is an open wound, And for her family and the millions who follow her story, it will not close until Amy comes home.